He told CNN that she had called him that morning from Flight 77, called him twice, talked to him for about a minute each time. He was uncertain whether it was cell phone or seatback phone. He went back and forth. But he said she reported that there were hijackers on the planes. They moved them all back to the crew and the passengers to the back of the plane. And they were armed with knives and box cutters. The only reported call that mentioned box cutters. So that shows you how important these calls from Barbara Olson were, because everybody knows the hijackers had box cutters. These calls were instrumental in getting the war on terror started, because these evil Muslim terrorists had killed sweet Barbara Olson. Now, what does the FBI do about that? In 2004, when they sent their report to the 9/11 Commission, they still had the calls from Barbara Olson in the report. But in 2006, people in the 9/11 Truth Movement found out that Flight 77 didn't have any onboard phones, no seatback phones, no onboard phones of any sort. What are you going to do then? So they called customer service and talked to him, and he says, that's right, we didn't have any on. The Boeing 757s that were made for America, not unlike those for United, were not equipped with onboard phones. What does the FBI do then? They can't say she called on a cell phone because it was too high. They can't say she called on an onboard phone because there weren't any. So they changed the story again in 2007. And the new story is this: there were no calls from Barbara Olson. You can find this now on the graphic for the report that they turn in for, 2006, when they changed the story, for the Moussaoui trial. And you find the graphic for Barbara Olson, and here's what it says. Barbara Olson, one call attempted, unconnected. And they always then say how long it lasted. 0 seconds. So this is pretty stunning. The FBI is part of the Department of Justice. He had been the Solicitor General for the Department of Justice, and now the FBI tells us that the story Ted Olson told about these calls from his wife, those calls never happened. So it seems like you got two choices. You've only got two choices. Either Ted Olson was duped, like Dina Burnett and the others were duped by fake calls, or he just made it up. He lied. Either way, the official story is based on a lie. And thus far, we've been unable to get a single newspaper or magazine or TV station in the United States to report this, which the FBI reported in 2006.
Rather interesting that even the FBI admits 0 seconds on the call. You don't have to believe me. This is the FBI. Once again, it came out in the Moussaoui trial. Okay, here's one more for you. You were just told that an Al-Qaeda guy was planning to bomb the DC metro system. But if you listened and you did a little diligence, is it true that the FBI funded him? Is it true that the FBI told him to go take pictures in those locations? Is it true that the FBI, started the whole thing, just like Elohim City with McVeigh? Why is it that when you find out that your intelligence services, look at the Mumbai attacks. Go ahead, here it is. United States agent behind the Mumbai attacks. I guess for you Indian and Pakistani residents here in Sharon, that means we're willing to kill the people in your native countries and then lie to you after we do it. Meanwhile, they send drones over into Pakistan to blow up weddings. What point will you men out there start getting some testosterone and saying this is not the way it should be in a constitutional republic? At what point will you viewers start asking questions and saying, hey, the Bill of Rights is important? At what point will you realize that this whole thing was set up to create the Department of Homeland Security so that they could control you, the American citizen? Why do you think they say the biggest threats are gun owners? The biggest threats are returning veterans. The biggest threats are what? Christians and homeschoolers. The biggest threats are people that support the Constitution. I'll ask that to my Department of Homeland Security representative here in Sharon. And then hopefully he'll give me an answer and I'll find out why and what they do at what's known as the Fusion Center. So that's my question to you, viewers. All right, so anyway, how do you find a patsy to pull this stuff off? Remember the underwear bomber? Yeah, what a clown. Once again, no passport, but the State Department tells the ticket agent people to get him and put him on the plane. Yeah. So they wanted the underwear bomber on the plane so that you could have what? Fear on Christmas Day? Because you're with your family. You're relaxing. Maybe you don't celebrate Christmas, but still you're relaxing. It's, all day long. It's like the most recent news cycle. It just happened that we had the printer cartridge bombs, supposedly. And then we find out they're not bombs. And then it turns out that they're drills. But it took over the news cycle when? Right before the elections. You've got to have fear again. We've got terrorism again. Al-Qaeda. And if you do any research, which I highly recommend you do, who funded and started Al-Qaeda? Was it the Central Intelligence Agency, also known as the Cocaine Importation Agency? What is the #1 cash crop in Afghanistan? Why are we now buying the fertilizer to grow the poppies? There's some homework. Why don't you type in U.S. Military Guards poppy fields? Isn't that just what Pat Tillman, for you sports nuts, I'm throwing this one to you. Here's a spiral pass from Pat Tillman. Isn't that what Pat Tillman wrote home to his mother? So how many Americans will you let the Army and the CIA kill? How many Pakistanis will you let them kill? How many Iraqis? Evidently more than 1 million. I want you Jewish people in Sharon to stand up and say, I'm against the Holocaust of those Iraqi people. I do, because after 1 million, I'm calling it a Holocaust. When you find out a war's based on lies, where's my Sharonites standing up and being men? I don't see it. Do you see it? Is it time now for you to concern yourself? Because if they treat those people like that, what makes you think they're going to treat your family any better? Do you think they're going to? There was that guy who said, when they came for the trade unionists, I did nothing. When they came for the communists, I did nothing. When they came for the Jews, I did nothing. And when they came for me, there was no one left to help. Who's putting the fear and the terror in your mind? I'm asking you, trust who? And with this in mind, because I always like a good quote, and I should throw to 2 other things, but the quote I'm looking for, you're going to like it. This is going to be Martin Luther King. The more I read his writings and the more I listen to him, the more I respect that man. And who was he a threat to? Isn't it funny that anybody who ever comes up, stands up and tells the truth? Who was he really threatening? He was against the Vietnam War, and as soon as he came against it, bang. But here's a threat from Martin Luther King Jr. I want you to seriously think about this, you Sharon viewers. In the end, we remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. What Martin Luther King said about the Vietnam War is, this is not a time to be silent. Viewers, this is not a time to be silent. Stand up. Tell your friends. Ask questions. Don't be afraid of ridicule. Don't be afraid, oh, you're a kook. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, even though it's fact. Don't be afraid. Stand up, be men again. Save this great constitutional republic. And with that, I will bless you. May God bless you. May God bless this constitutional republic. And down with the New World Order.
question is, will they kill untold millions as they did in the last century? It is not the elite cockroaches that determine that. It is you.